When it rains, it pours in Philadelphia as Tyrese Maxey joins his superstar teammates Joel Embiid and Paul George with being the latest Sixers player to be ruled out for the season. It has been a wild year for the Sixers from start to finish, with just about every expectation being wiped off the table not too soon when it started. But it does bring into the question, how does this season directly impact Tyrese Maxey? Oh yeah, and by the way, Nick Nurse maybe not as much on the same page with this all news. Gonna dive into all of it right here on this video. Before I do want to remind you guys, make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. That at this point in time, 38.5% of you guys watch these videos have subscribed to the channel. Let's get this Sixers Digest family growing. I know it has been tough times this season, but let's get through it together. Now let's dive into the story of today, which of course is Tyrese Maxey officially being shut down for the remainder of the season. We have from Shams Charania here the tweet stating, Philadelphia 76ers star Tyrese Maxey is expected to be ruled out for the remainder of the season with a finger tendon injury, sources tell ESPN. Maxey has been sidelined since March 3rd and has attempted to rehab the finger, but still is dealing with discomfort and needs treatment. We have a little bit more details on that directly here that we also have from Shams stating that the Sixers actually pushed for Tyrese Maxey to come back at some point this season, but he is just not healthy. He's still having discomfort and he needs treatment in his finger. And to further add that a little more context, that we also saw from Shams on ESPN today, that he reports that Maxey is expected to be ruled out for the rest of the season with the finger tendon, that Rich Paul has actually just confirmed this news to me. So of course, this is coming from Maxey's camp directly, which I do think is important to note before the next part that I get into. But frankly, from my perspective here, this could have happened several weeks ago. That I honestly think Tyrese Maxey was playing too long for this Sixers team, especially when you factor in the news about him having to play through a different shooting form because of this finger injury, that there were reports of him only being capable of shooting the basketball with 3 fingers. And when we're talking about a guy who's 24 years old, already been an all-star, has a bright future ahead of him at the NBA level, there's no reason to put that level of risk on him. And to kind of reflect on Tyrese Maxey's season thus far, not one that he will be writing home about or campaigning to get in the Hall of Fame with, but 26.3 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, 6.1 assists. His efficiency did take a bit of a dip this season, shooting just 43.7% from the floor, 33.7% from 3 there. Not exactly what we've come to expect from a guy who's been top 5 in 3-point percentage in 2 seasons in his career already. And I do think that is directly equated to these finger issues that he has dealt with there. Frankly, those final few games that he played in his Sixers uniform, we're talking about shooting 0 for 11 from 3 or 1 for 12 from 3 on different games like that. That is not the Tyrese Maxey that we have come to know and expect. Now, maybe the biggest part of this story is the Sixers once again not being on the same page here. And what we got exactly today is I'm recording this shortly before the Sixers tip off against the Milwaukee Bucks, that Nick Nurse says he doesn't know anything about Tyrese Maxey being out for the season. He just knows he's out tonight and they'll go from there. Yeah, not great that nobody's on the same page here. And for the Maxey, this particular issue from Maxey's perspective, I do think it is important to note that this is coming from his camp. And how do we know that exactly? Is because Shams Charania did confirm that himself, acknowledging that Rich Paul has just confirmed this to me. Now, I'm not going to be galaxy brained and go into how this could be leading to a rift within the Sixers organization, but this also comes on the heels of apparently a rift between Joel Embiid and the Sixers organization regarding his injury status. The point blank, the bottom line of all of this is there's a lot of mistakes being made by the Sixers, and it does not feel like this is being ran like a cohesive organization in a way that breeds success. And frankly, we're seeing the results of this from all the fallout. Now, for Maxey specifically, a little bit different outlook for Joel Embiid and Paul George. For Joel and Paul, we know kind of the injury risk that is tied with those guys. That for Paul specifically, has not played a ton of games when looking at the larger track record there. That he is over 35 years old on the tail end of his career at this point. And for Joel specifically, that's been a guy that we know the lack of availability issues have plagued him throughout his entire career. Maxey is a guy on the younger side, still in the first part of his career. That there's a lot more seasons this dude has under his legs that we hope continue in Philadelphia. And I do think that brings more of a reason why you have to protect him and keep his long-term interest in mind. I do wonder if there was a little bit of frustration from his camp about this not being done. That with Nick Nurse specifically, and for the stance of the Sixers as a season, that they've been pretty open about we're getting guys back on the court whenever they are healthy and capable of. Now, granted, in defense of that, it's not like they went into the season planning to be in the state they in, planning to have the 5th worst record in the NBA, begging to keep their top 6 protected draft pick. That was not the expectation when they did come into the season, but those are the cards that are dealt. When you look at a team like the Toronto Raptors or the Utah Jazz, that they've been so proactive in preventing wear and tear, unnecessary wear and tear on their players that are solidified NBA players. Unfortunately, The second half of this Sixers season has been far more about evaluating which one of these guys can stick at the NBA level than it is about actually building and playing cohesive basketball. There will be a time where the interest shifts, and it will be next season when we are back interested in how can we produce winning basketball, get the most talent out of each of these guys, but it is about limping to the finish line at this point in time, and frankly, that should not be a brand of basketball that Tyrese Maxey is taking part in. Get him healthy, get him ready to attack this offseason, and get him back to trending in the right direction, because not to be too difficult on him, not to be a little bit too, I guess, overly critical, because there are plenty of fair reasons, but it is fair to assess that we have seen a bit of regression these past couple seasons. And to acknowledge what exactly that is, I did want to look at these stats as a whole. So the raw numbers, you still see growth. That this season, a career high in points, still passing the ball at a high level, 6.1 assists after averaging 6.2 assists last season. But when you do look at the efficiency splits, that's where my mind does pop out. Shot 43.7% from the field this season. That is the worst of his career on 21.0 field goal attempts. More concerning to me is the three-point numbers. 33.7% on 9.2 three-point attempts. This is a guy who 2 seasons ago was shooting 43.4% from beyond the arc. We're talking about almost 10% better 2 seasons ago that he was connecting. Now, a lot of this has to do with the volume that is put on his plate, that it is far more easy to hit 2 out of every 4 three-pointers than it is 5 out of every 10 when you factor in, NBA defenses running at you, the type of looks, and all these self-generation. That Maxey, when you're looking at those high-level numbers that he was connecting on, that those were opportunities where they were a catch and shoot, and he was not acknowledged as the Tyrese Maxey that he now is. That was when he was still kind of coming into his own, putting himself onto the map from an NBA perspective. Things obviously get harder, but that is part of the challenge. And for the people that are the build it around Tyrese Maxey, I will unfortunately look back at the season for a clear example of why that is not the case. Now, I'm not saying that Tyrese Maxey cannot be a high-level contributor on a championship team. In fact, I would directly argue that he can be. But if we're talking about him being the number one option on a team, I don't think we're talking about a very good basketball team. And I don't mean that as an extreme insult to Tyrese Maxey. The list of players that those qualifications do apply to is very slim. The amount of players who can be the best player on a championship team at best is maybe 8-9 guys in the NBA, and I don't think Tyrese Maxey is one of them. Now, to be fair to the guy, he is still 24 years old. He is still coming into his own, and he's already exceeded every single expectation that we have set for him. Let's not forget that the biggest question mark surrounding this guy coming out of college is that he was not a good enough shooter. Flash forward 2 seasons in the NBA, and he's shooting over 40% from 3. He is a great player. There's no doubt about it there, but I'm just kind of putting that into context that as we build forward and evaluate the state of the Sixers, I don't think we can look at Tyrese Maxey as the guy in the way that I think a lot of people hope. Now, he should not have to be. That there is still Jared McCain kicking around, and I think some of us have forgotten just how great that he looked in that brief stretch that he was there. I think this is a bit of a hot take for some people, but I do think when the dust settles, that just how good they are as basketball players, that Jared McCain will pass Tyrese Maxey in the not-so-distant future. But nonetheless, those are 2 small guards that you're building about, and that is why we are so invested in this overall NBA draft lottery. If you're talking about adding a Cooper Flagg to that duo there, or an Ace Bailey, or a VJ Edgecombe, or a Kamen Maluak, one of these high-impact draft prospects that could change the outlook of the Sixers team, you got something that you're cooking with there. But for the point in time, you still got to get to that point to even put yourself in it. Now, for Maxey specifically, we know that he's a Rich Paul guy. We know that he's a Clutch Sports guy, and that is a concern there. And why do I say that here? To be fair to Clutch, they obviously do their job at a very high level. That Rich Paul's primary job is to do what is best for the athletes that he represents. Now, I personally feel he crosses that line on a far too regular basis for an agent. That for me, it's important to note the hierarchy of how this works is an agent works for the player, not the other way around. I do think Rich Paul forgets that hierarchy at times, and I give an exact example of this that happened right here in Philadelphia when the Ben Simmons fallout all happened, that he wanted out of Philadelphia. He wanted to be traded from the Sixers, never wanted to suit up again. Rich Paul being Ben Simmons' agent at the time, as well as Tyrese Maxey's agent. Coincidentally, Tyrese Maxey charity events being canceled in Philadelphia until a Ben Simmons trade is done. That to me is out of line. That to me is whack, but that's also a little bit of an example of how powerful Rich Paul and Clutch Sports are. That is a dance with the devil that teams have to do. That Daryl Morey, it is no coincidence why he was rolling out the red carpet to give Tyrese Maxey this incredible presentation before signing a max contract. I have never seen any team in any sport do anything like that for a guy just re-signing his contract there. Now, I'm glad that he did it, and I understand why. It should give you a little bit of grace, a little bit of like a benefit of the doubt for the current situation. But I do think that behind the scenes, there have been some conversations between Rich Paul and Daryl Morey about where is this? What is the direction of this team? Can we get back on the same page? And I also think it's not entirely coincidental that some of the leaks that did happen early this season, let's not forget the team meeting where Joel Embiid was called out directly for being late. Who called him out? It was Tyrese Maxey. Now, is it strange to me that Tyrese Maxey isn't painted in an incredibly great light in that overall situation? It is a little interesting to me that I'm not accusing Tyrese Maxey of anything here. This has nothing to do with Tyrese in particular. It does have a lot to do with Rich Paul, and I do wonder if the powers that be, the workings behind their scene, have a little bit of a finer eye on the Sixers moving forward. So I think for Daryl Morey specifically, this should be a bit of a cautionary tale of we need to get this train back on the tracks as soon as possible. I don't think this is anything major to work about from Tyrese from a physical standpoint. I'm confident that this has more to do with the state of the season, the outlook for this team, and maximizing those lottery odds. But nonetheless, glad that the pin is finally pulled. Do hope that news is officially broken to Nick Nurse in the relatively near future, and this team will continue limping to this point. So we'll see what overall happens from here, but I did want to plant that seed a little bit of keep an eye if there is a little bit of whispers of frustration from the Tyrese Maxey angle. Again, this is nothing from Tyrese directly here. This will certainly come from the Rich Paul / Clutch Points or Clutch Sports campaign there, but I do think the way this is all played out with Nick Nurse not being aware of this and all those kind of things, definitely worth paying a bit of attention to moving forward. So let me know what you guys think about that entire conversation. Appreciate you guys continuing to rock with me as we wind down in this limp to the finish line for this regular season. I do want to remind you guys one more time before we sign off to make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. So once again, 61.5% of you guys watching these videos have not subscribed just yet. Let's grow this Sixers Digest family together. There are better days ahead in the Sixers world and want you guys a part of it. So hit that button, drop a like on this video, drop your comments below, and I'll be back talking with you next time. Peace.